Welcome back to America Decide. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special White House envoy Steve Witkoff are in Paris today for meetings on the war in Ukraine. Both European and Ukrainian officials are significantly taking part in these discussions. Witkoff, by the way, will also be meeting with Iranian officials in Rome over the weekend about the future of Iran's nuclear program. I'm joined now by Seth Jones. He is the president of the Defense and Security Department at the Center for Strategic and International Studies to talk about the status of Russia-Ukraine talks. Seth, it has been said by many that the Russians have a well-established pattern in moments like this. Create lots of different places which talks can occur. Meanwhile, you carry out all of your strategic aims while the talks seemingly go nowhere. Is that what's happening?
I think that's exactly what's happening. You know, it's interesting watching the Russians do this in Syria during the war in Syria. Russians really get involved in 2015 on the ground. As negotiations start to pick up about an end to that war, what the Russians were really doing was A, trying to make it seem like they were interested in negotiation, but B, what they were really doing is dragging this out so they could put themselves in a much better military position to retake territory. That is exactly what they did. They dragged those Syrian negotiations out for months and years, and they ended up taking back most of the territory with the Iranians and the Assad regime. That's what they're doing in Ukraine right now.
And this is an important time of year in which to do that because winter is ending, the ground is thawing or drying, and then meaning when it's drier, you can advance more rapidly. And lots of analysts I've read say that's what they expect to happen.
Yeah, we're already seeing indications in Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, also Kharkiv, that the Russians look like they're mobilizing for a push over the next several weeks. I mean, the problem, though, is that Russian casualties have been extraordinary. They're moving so slowly and taking territory. In terms of meters per day, it's actually slower than the British and the French during the Somme in World War I right now. So they're not being very successful. But they do have a manpower advantage over the Ukrainians right now.
And there are some concerns expressed by analysts on the outside and Ukrainians on the inside that they may be running into shortages of military equipment and personnel.
And I think that certainly will be growing and increasingly worse over the spring and the summer. And this really puts a sort of major question on, will the United States be willing to provide additional weapons to the Ukrainians? From what I'm hearing from the White House right now, the discussions are within the Oval Office to end all U.S. military aid to Ukraine. And if that's the case, that will really put Ukraine both in a bind in terms of assistance, but also it'll be a morale issue. And it's really going to be up to the Europeans to see whether they can do that.
And to the Europeans, can they backfill fast enough?
And can they and will the U.S. let them backfill with U.S. weapons systems right now that they may need permission? That's a really big question. And will the Europeans be willing to put some boots on the ground in Ukraine? Big debate now.
So on 60 Minutes, you might have seen it, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, invited President Trump to come to Ukraine. Let's take a listen to that.
We want you to come, and I think to come and to see. You think you understand what's going on here. Okay. We respect your position, you understand. But please, before any kind of decisions, any kind of formats of negotiations, come.
Any possibility of that happening?
I think it's highly unlikely. I don't see...
You can understand why he's making the invitation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've been there. I mean, I think I've been there. I've been in the... You know, it's not just being in Zelensky's office and listening to the briefings. I've done that. It's also moving around Ukraine, hearing the sirens go off, knowing that there are incoming ballistic or cruise missiles or drones in Ukrainian cities. You feel the war and sort of the Russian intimidation that you can't do by sitting back here. And so I think it would be critical. I mean, every president in general has visited a war zone area where there are either U.S. forces or U.S. aid, but I just don't think either the president or vice president look like they're likely to go.
And when the world hears the president, as he said earlier this week, imply that it was Ukraine who started this war, what is it to conclude?
Well, I mean, the reality is crystal clear. You know, the U.S. intelligence was crystal clear. This was a Russian offensive operation, a Russian invasion. It strains credibility when statements like that they're just so patently false. And I think that's been the response in London and Paris and Berlin. How can you say everyone knows that this was an invasion, a Russian invasion?
And very quickly, how do you think that's heard in Moscow?
Oh, this sounds like capitulation. This sounds like it's exactly what they want to hear, and this sounds like they have the upper hand in the negotiations.
Seth Jones, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.